I am so unexpectedly behind on everything. I'm going to do my February reading, well, the first half of February reading, but this probably is not going to be out in February at this rate. And I don't know how the second half of February reading is going to go, which is not going to be this vlog, it's going to be the next one, because my holds are taking a lot longer to come in than I thought they would. We'll just see what happens. So I'm going to get what I definitely need to get out in February out, just in case things bleed over and I don't end up reading my February books in February. I'm going to start with those. So that means I need to read the book I pulled in my bubblegum TBR for February, which is Royally Crushed by Niki Burnham, which this is technically a bind up of 3 books. That is also a reread from 2011 or 2012. We'll find out. Yep, July 14th, 2011 is when I read this. And at the time I had marked like the entire bind up as a rating. This time I'm going to go through on Goodreads and mark each book separately and then figure out what the final rating is for this. But I'm only going to count the 3 books. I'm not going to count the bind up this time. So this is first on the list. Then I have my Buzzword-a-thon books. I've got a Silhouette, which is The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman, which I need to figure out where my sticker scraper is. Give it another go. Give it a try, because this was $5.98 at Barnes & Noble, I think. I've had this forever. And then for the keyboard, I'm going to go with Midnight Shift by, I am going to try my best, Cheon-Ran? Best-selling Korean vampire novel. Oh, I didn't know it was vampires. What is this even about? Doesn't this have to do with vampires? Doesn't this have to do with vampires? English. Is this demons or vampires? Demonic creature. Oh no, vampires. So I accidentally picked 2 vampire books, I think. So that's cool. And then because my loans are going to be due in the next couple of days, I'm going to read Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy, which was part of my 26 and 2026. And Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinniman? You know Dungeon Crawler Carl. Everybody's talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is due back in 5 or 6 days, I think, and then Half His Age is due back tomorrow, so I will be starting with Half His Age. But that is the general consensus of what I'm going to be working on so far. I'm going to pick more as I go along, but these I'm going to get done first to make sure they're done. And then I'll probably pick like 1 or 2 more, depending on either what I can get in for my holds or what I can find that I wanted to read in this month. And I'll just slot it into this one instead of the second half to make sure I get it done in February. Oh, I knew this was going to be a chaotic year. It's getting a little more chaotic than I anticipated. So let's start with Half His Age. My phone updated and now I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, anyway, slight change of plans. I have to go out of town for like a week in less than 48 hours at this point. It's probably closer to like 36 hours. I'm not good at math. I'm not going to even try to do that. That means I cannot lug a bunch of books with me. And I hit something. I'm just going to run it from the top. Okay, I'm going away, so I have to digitize everything I'm taking with me, so I'm not lugging a ton of books around. I might bring 1 book, maybe. Maybe I shouldn't. I really don't have the space to be taking books with me. We'll see what I end up doing. But before I get around to that, I finished Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy, and I gave it 3.5 stars. But wow, that was an experience. When I said I didn't want to read Lolita-esque material after reading Lolita, I probably should have stuck with that, and I wanted to give Jennette McCurdy a try. Her fiction debut. I already read her memoir. And yet I think I will read something else by her if she puts it out. If it's not along the same lines, I will be reading it again. But Half His Age was so uncomfortable, which was the point, I suppose. I will admit I skimmed certain parts a little bit because I just didn't want to keep reading about Mr. Corgi and her doing things with it. I skipped over certain parts. I didn't skip. I skimmed over certain parts. I didn't fully skim them. My eyeballs were looking, but like they weren't taking as much information as I would have if I was like reading it word by word. So that was an experience. I wouldn't necessarily say it was the worst experience. Like I understand what she was getting at, and I understand it was probably really cathartic for her, because I know from her memoir and from like other clips I've seen of her talking about it, this is a situation similar to what she had to go through growing up, and that fucking sucks. So to write a book to help her get through it, or something along those lines, anything that could help somebody in that situation, fine. The thing that hit me the most though was like throughout the entire book, despite knowing what his first name is, she never stops calling him Mr. Corgi. That is her teacher, and she doesn't let you forget it. She doesn't let him forget it. He tries to forget it. He tries to pretend it's not even like a thing at certain points, but like she never forgets, and you never forget. Following that, I started reading Dungeon Crawler Carl and ended up getting, what Oh, I almost got to 200 pages. So chapter 25, before I decided to DNF this. It is very dude bro-y and much darker than I was anticipating it being. Because I always hear people talking about it like it's so funny. This is like the most hilarious book they've ever read. One, I didn't get the humor. The humor is not for me. I wasn't laughing like at all. I liked Princess Donut. She was a little funny, but like there were certain points where I was just like, damn girl, calm down. She's a cat though. I should have known when I first got into like the hoarding situation, when they started talking about the hoarder, I mean, that this really was going to take a turn. It had already taken that turn, but it was really veering into a dimension I did not want to be situated in. Because like this is dark and it doesn't really hide that fact. It puts humor into it and it's very guy, gross, a little over the top dude bro humor that I don't click with. But that does not cover up what's happening, and that Carl himself, the main character Carl himself, understands that this is atrocious what's happening to him and what's happening to the people that have gotten sucked into this and the people he has to fight to get through this dungeon in order to survive. If it were just that, I probably would still continue just to see where it's going, but I actually don't like the writing style, so I enjoy the lit RPG bits, but there's just something about the way it's structured that is, I'm not having a great time. It is very much structured like a video game, which you'd think I would like because I love video games. And we're DNFing this. Will I ever come back to it and try it again? I don't know. Probably not. But that whole hoarder scene is going to sit with me for a while. Much like it sits with Carl. So yeah, so that's one more off the list I don't have to worry about. Now for the books I was able to get digitally. I was able to find Royally Crushed. My brain skipped. What is it called? On Kindle. I was able to find this, so I will be able to get through these. They're relatively short books in themselves. They're each like 200, a little over 200 pages, maybe like 230 pages, but the text is huge. So I have a feeling I will fly through this, and my backup is Dark Days Club, which I also got digitally. And then if I end up DNFing this, or I want something to like mix into it, I also got When the Reckoning Comes digitally, so we can slot that into. I was planning on reading that when I got back, but we're just gonna push that one forward just in case. And then I don't know if I'm going to take the Midnight Shift with me. If I can find the Midnight Shift digitally, I will also be taking and reading this. Well, maybe reading this. This will be on the roster. And if not, I don't think I want to take this with me. This is not my book. This is a library book. I don't want to take it and then destroy it and then suffer the consequences. So we're probably going to be leaving this one behind. I also probably will not be vlogging while I'm up there. We'll see what I end up doing. Because I'm going to be surrounded by my family and I don't want to record in front of anyone. So I will probably see you when I get back in a week, and it might just be like a massive update of stuff before I go into like the last book that I'm going to read. Maybe. Unless I don't read everything I meant to. I don't know. We'll see what happens as usual. Well, February is turning out to be a bust in terms of things I had planned. So I'm back, by the way. I indeed I didn't get much footage while I was up there because I was working the entire time. And I also didn't get much reading done while I was there because I was working the entire time. So we gotta like revamp. I mean, my plans are still gonna be moving forward as intended once my holds come in, but I don't know when that's going to be. So I'm gonna have to slot some things in between what I was already planning, and we're just rolling with it right now. I already knew this year was going to be chaotic. It's just turning out a little more chaotic than I'd anticipated. But first things first, I started and finished The Midnight Shift. I guess that is the book I read while I was up in Maryland. I read a little bit of Royally Crushed too, but we'll get there. I ended up giving this one 2 stars, but more for the way I think it was translated than because of the story itself. So this is a vampire story, and you're following. There's 3 POVs, but 2 timelines. 2 of them are present day, and 1 POV is like 30, 40 years before this takes place. And to be totally honest, I only cared about the one that took place in the past. You're following a detective, a vampire hunter, and a nurse. It starts off with the detective, or not, I guess she's not a detective, she's a police officer. Is she a detective? Is she also, I don't know. I don't know if she's also a detective. I think she's definitely a police officer. Investigating investigating a hospital for elderly people because they've just had their 4th suicide, I think, in like as many months, if not less, and it's getting suspicious. So she looks into that. She gets tracked down by, or I guess not tracked down, but she runs into a lady named Violet who kind of brings her to the whole world of what's actually happening. And Violet's storyline is the past timeline that we get, and now I love that one. That one was so good, and that's all I cared about. The rest of this, not so much. I found the pacing really clunky, and some of the word choices in the sentence structures were just, it kept throwing me off. So it ended up being a 2-star for me, but those 2 stars were specifically for Violet's timeline. While I was gone, I also started on Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. Yeah, Goodman. But I actually am going to be like soft DNFing this. It's not a full DNF at the moment. Did I take my bookmark out? No. Okay. I got 200 pages into this before I decided I didn't want to continue with it, at least at the moment. This is also a vampire hunter story. No, it's not vampires. This is a demon hunter story set in Regency, England. It's written really well for a Regency book. I read a lot of like Regency era books, and I really enjoy like the Regency period as a whole. Like, I love the Regency period. I watched Bridgerton specifically for the Regency period, and in fact, footnote, BBC dropped Pride and Prejudice 1995 on YouTube for free, so I will be watching all of that probably until they take it off again multiple times. So anyway, where was I going with that? Regency demon slaying. The reason I am soft DNFing this, despite this being a really like detailed and well thought out Regency era piece, is because one, I'm not big on the paranormal in Regency era apparently, and two, this is so slow. Like, the pacing on this is some of the slowest pacing I've ever encountered, not gonna lie. 200 pages in, she's just barely learned about this whole demon thing and her role in it. Like, almost nothing else has happened at this point except, you know, like typical Regency stuff, her meeting people, her doing things. And I think we're about to start going into her training regarding the demon hunting, but it is a snail's pace. And I'm not currently in the mood for it or the mindset for it, but I might come back to it if I get there at some point. I don't know. However, Alison Goodman has another Regency series that is about, I think, it's a mystery instead of paranormal, and I really want to give that one a try, because I think the paranormal part is really the part that was throwing me off with this. I want to try the other one and see how I like that, because they're genuinely very well written. So softening up here and possibly coming back to it at some point. I'm not going to hold on to this copy. I'm going to move it along to probably my sister, but I don't know what I'm saying. Never mind. Let's move on. So because I'm DNFing Dark Days Club, which was my silhouette book for the Buzzwordathon, I'm going to have to read at this point because I'm running out of time, Deadly by Julie Chibbaro, I think that's pronounced, which hopefully I will be able to get through simply because plague book. I love me a plague book. And then I've also started on, I didn't get to read this while I was in Maryland, but I started on When the Reckoning Comes. But I'm not far enough into it really to, well, I guess like from what I've read so far, and I've read like a chapter and a half, they are long chapters, but it's about these 3 people, Mira, Jessie, and Celine, Mira, Jessie, and Celine, who are 3 childhood friends who have stopped talking to each other at the start of this book. And it looks like it's going to be one of those books that has like a before and an after a certain event, or maybe a after and then before/during the event, because you start off in Mira's perspective years after something had happened that had caused her to stop talking to Jessie and Celine. Celine calls Mira to ask her to come to her wedding and says that Jessie is also invited and going to come. There's something about whatever happened to them, Celine wasn't there, but between Mira and Jessie, something happened for them to just stop talking to each other, and Celine was included in this for, I don't know, maybe they just like fell out and stopped talking to each other. Actually, I think that is what happened. But Jessie and Mira stopped talking to each other because of this event. Oh, and another plot point, sorry. The wedding is taking place on a plantation. Celine is white, Jessie and Mira are black. Celine is getting married on a plantation that is connected to whatever happened to Jessie and Mira. I think, from what I understand, they snuck into it one day when they were children and supposedly haunted. Celine didn't go, and something happened. We're gonna get more into that, I'm assuming. Chapter 2 is more of the past, so I'm assuming we're going to get the background of what happened at some point. And then last on the docket, I have read 2 of the 3 books in this bind-up of Royally Crushed by Niki Burnham, and I don't know where my bookmarks are. My bookmarks are not in the correct place. I read Spin Control. I read the first one. I read Royally Jacked. I read Spin Control. I'm on the 3rd one now. I haven't actually started it yet, but Do-Over. 3rd one is Do-Over. Okay. I've read the first 2. And both of them were 2 stars. I'm thinking this is just going to overall be a 2-star read. It is very of its time, which at the time I remember thinking like, wow, the thinking of this book was more ahead than things I had read previously, because The main character of this book, 15-year-old Valerie, starts off her whole story with her parents getting a divorce because her mother comes out as gay. She ends up moving to this little country in Europe with her father, who is high up in the political sphere. He gives advice to the president, but he has to move to this little country for the rest of the president's term because the president is a very conservative president, and they don't want it getting out about his wife and then like causing all this shit. So he has to leave until the term is over, and he can either be reinstated when the president gets reelected or get picked up by the new president. It's just like a precautionary thing. But Valerie ends up going with her father, so she doesn't have to stay with her mother and her mother's girlfriend, whose name is Gabby. She moves to this castle. She meets the prince. She gets involved with the prince. You know how it goes. Very easy to read. It does have some like commentary to it that Valerie is kind of unaware of at the moment because she's literally like 15, 16, and she doesn't fully understand what her mom had to go through in order to get to the point that she's in. You get more of that in the second book where she's kind of like understanding what's going on, but she's 15, 16. Like you're getting what you're getting. But it is very easy to get through, especially because this font is literally huge. Like this is massive. I like it like this, honestly. Maybe I should start reading those large print books because they're so much faster to get through. Anyway, I'll finish this up. I'll finish When the Reckoning Comes and at least get into Deadly before I get to another update. Don't mind all of this. I just walked home from the grocery store in 84-degree weather. A little toasty and sweaty. I wanted to get this out before I forgot because I am almost done Royally Crushed, but I finished, what did I finish? Good Lord. So first, I finished When the Reckoning Comes, and I gave it 3 stars. I like the vibes of it. The vibes were great for a gothic horror. What's the right word? I was very... whimsical is not the right word. What am I thinking of? I can't think. My brain is fried. It was fever dreamy, but I'm trying to think of a different word than that. Because you would constantly go between, like, the current day events and then when the suspicious, strange things were happening. And the reason it got a 3 from me is because the ending was far too rushed, and I'm not sure if this is really a spoiler, but like, where was the reckoning? I wanted like a reckoning, and it didn't really feel like it was there. Honestly, it just felt like this was just a hellscape for Mira to have to wade through for no goddamn reason, which maybe is actually the point because, you know, the suffering never really does end, unfortunately. When you continue to have plantations, correct me if I'm wrong, but do any plantations in America? I am American and I don't live, do I live near any plantations? I live in Southwest Florida, so I don't know if we actually live near any plantations, but do any currently standing plantations have reenactments to the degree that were happening in When the Reckoning Comes? Because if so, what the fuck? Like, genuinely, what the fuck are we doing? I don't think they do, and I really hope they don't. I know they sometimes have like the little cutouts of the people who would work in the sections, but like I don't think they actually have any. God, do they actually have any reenactments like that? I should look that up. Editing me, look that up, and then put the answer here. And then I also finished Deadly, which I also gave a 3. This reminded me a lot of The 5th of March, I think, in that it's like a historical retelling of people that actually existed. I don't actually know if the main character in this one, Prudence, really existed, but the person she worked for, Dr. Soper, did exist. And what I was unaware of when I went into this, I knew it was a plague book. I didn't know it was about Typhoid Mary. Like, I would have been so much more enthusiastic. I mean, I was enthusiastic about it in the first place because plague, but like, I would have been more enthusiastic because I don't think I've ever read anything about Typhoid Mary. But this is in fact about Typhoid Mary and her arrest the first time she was unknowingly spreading typhoid around. Not the second time, because she does get released after, because this is about her arrest. She does get released eventually and go on to go get a hospital and get so many more people sick. But this is the first time, the discoverance of her and the actual Dr. Soper, who was the person who actually did this. This is I don't know if it's like a retelling or like a fantasy. I don't exactly know how much of this is true because I don't know that much about Typhoid Mary or Mary Mallon. But this was kind of like it's not really a YA, it's more like a middle grade retelling of her capture, a story of her capture through the eyes of a girl named Prudence who is working for Dr. Soper as his secretary. And it does lean more middle grade than it does YA. But overall, I enjoyed it. I can't really give it more than a 3. I typically don't give these things more than a 3, so this is pretty standard for me to have given it a 3. But wow, that walk took a lot out of me. But overall, that was a fun surprise that was about Mary Mallon. And now I'm off to find another plague book. But before I do that, I have 1 story left of Royally Crushed and I'll be finished with that. So once I finish that, I'll go back to you and we'll do our wrap up. So it's gonna be a 2 all around for me. Well, kind of. The first 2 books in this got 2 stars, and then the last one got a 1.5 because I think there was supposed to be another book in the works that just didn't happen because it kind of ended on a note that could easily have been cut off for the end of the series, but it also felt like it left a lot of things open for more because we didn't really get like a conclusion with her mother, except, you know, past what happened in the second book, and the relationship itself just felt like unfinished. The story itself felt unfinished. All in all, this definitely would have been my book if I had read it in high school. I think I read it a little bit after high school. I don't know, did I read this in high school or did I read this a little bit after high school? I don't know where my phone is. I think I read this a little bit after high school, which is why originally I gave it a 3 anyway, because I was just aged out of it a little bit. This would have been great for young high school. It didn't age particularly well in some aspects, considering it's been like 15 years since it was published, but I think it still handles some subjects well enough that I would still recommend it to kids. Well, she's 15 in the books, I guess 15 and up. And despite it not aging well, I do still enjoy reading older books sometimes just to see, you know, what has progressed, what hasn't, if things still hold up, things like that. I just enjoy reading old stuff sometimes. But with the end of that means it's time for a wrap up on this one. Man, that trip really threw a wrench in everything. Wow. Okay, so I read a 3.5 star, a DNF, this overall 2-star situation, another 2-star, a soft DNF, a 3-star, and another 3-star. That is on par for my reading taste usually. And I feel like a slump of sorts coming on. So I'm going to do something that either is going to make that worse or maybe give me a kick of some kind. I don't know. When I get bored, I give myself challenges. So I'm going to be doing a challenge for the next video. And by challenge, I mean, I'm just going to make myself do something that gives me like a structure to follow. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.